And I think it's important for a lot of our listeners and anybody in general in business to understand that not only is sales extremely important to a business, right? That's where your revenue is generated from. However, when you're truly believing in the product and you're truly adding value to your customers, or if you're truly educating your customers like you are in your case, it's not hard selling it. It's almost as if you didn't push them to move forward with your service or product. You'd be doing them a disservice because you know it'll help them so much.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah. And our business model, even more, we're not just knocking on cold doors. I mean, I respect that. I see the hustle you guys do, but we've got 90-something% of our new leads come in from folks that find our website. For those folks, either retirees that want more time for their grandkids or golfing or fishing, or a young professional that's kind of just realized that that hustle game that real estate takes isn't their cup of tea. And this is a good option to exit left and without the tax consequences, and continued cash flow, continued appreciation. And that creates inventory for you guys. It's so tight there.
Let's get it. Mr. Peter Roberts, big brother to our main man, Andrew Roberts. Thanks for coming, man. We appreciate you coming on our show. How you doing today?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm a big fan. I've been watching you guys and learning from you. I really like what you do, how you do it.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, we're excited. We're excited to learn a little bit from you today and our listeners as well. You're kind of in the line of the DST, and we got those books that you sent us, but so appreciate that.
Great.
And to back up, man, we'd love to kind of hear kind of how you got to the point where you're at today. I know you had a lawn business back in the day, and we're getting after it, and now you're doing some DST stuff, but we'd love to kind of run through your background and how you got to where you are today, and then along the way we'll probably ask you some questions and see how we can add value for our listeners.
Sure. Yeah, I just want to start off by saying I feel like we're all brothers from other mothers. I mean, Andrew and I are literally brothers, but you guys, I just want to say that, I also drive a Prius. I don't want that to be the first thing people know about me, but it is now.
Let's go, baby.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
When I got it, I kind of got it for different reasons. I don't know. I was living in California when I got it, and we were driving out. Family was driving back and forth to Texas at least once a year, and gas prices in California are twice what they are here. So it was kind of an economic decision at that time. But when I got married, I was driving a truck 17 years ago, a pickup, and we moved back to Texas here 3 years ago. And my wife, as soon as we got here, my wife says, "I think now that we're back in Texas, you need to go back to a truck." So Andrew's got a truck, and my dad's got a truck, so I maybe back in the pickup business soon.
Is the Prius white?
Yes, it's a white Prius.
All right.
Come on, baby.
There we go.
I thought I was doing something like special when I got it, and then I found out like right after I got it that it was like the #1 selling car in California, which is where I bought it. But probably not in Texas.
I believe that. Matt and I are kind of outliers in the Priuses, but we kind of like it that way.
Yeah, and we'll get to it, but I don't see too many of my clients in person, so I don't have to worry about squeezing them into with a little less foot room,
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually had a buddy, and he had a Range Rover, and he worked at a company called Endeavor, and his boss said that's a I don't need your money car. He said, sell that car and go get something else. I was like, that's an interesting perspective.
Yeah. You don't want to look too comfortable.
Yeah. Right on. So yeah, man.
So,
Andrew's a brother to us as well. So That's exciting that you feel that way. And I know you've watched some of our videos, so we appreciate the support over the years for sure.
Yeah, I feel like the biggest difference between us might be that I grew up in South Austin and you guys are North guys. I consider you Northerners. But when I was in college, Andrew and my mom and sister, they moved up to Round Rock, so he's from the North Side.
Yeah, it's
I don't recognize South Austin when I go back now. It's just there used to be fields, between my house and my high school, and it's developed fully since then.
So when you were growing up, let's talk about like what your business mind was. Was getting into the lawn business one of the first things you did, or
yeah, but I didn't have great business acumen. I didn't mind working, and our parents expected us to kind of contribute, and there's things I wanted, clothes, shoes, trips. So I just, junior high, a friend, an older friend, one of my, like a youth pastor at church, he had done a lawn business on the side for a long time. So he gave me a few tips, and I just started, knocking on a few neighbors' doors. And down there in Shady Hollow, where I mostly lived in junior high and high school, they had a neighborhood newsletter where, if you were a kid, you could get a free line in there, for your landscaping or babysitting services. So by the time I was in college, I had maybe, 20 to 30 accounts. And about 2 years into college, I decided I was in chemical engineering. So I got an opportunity to intern at the Motorola plant there. And
you went to UT, right?
And, yes. Yeah, I went to UT. And so I got an opportunity to intern at Motorola. And so I realized, I can't keep up with these lawn accounts. So I just gave them to a friend. Like, I was just like, I can't take care of these lawns anymore. And so I had a friend who, hey, you mind? And so I realized that a few years after the fact, I probably could have sold all those accounts.
Yeah.
But I just wasn't that concerned about it at that point. So I just helped out a friend.
Yeah, that's one of those things where I can see how if you're just out there doing the work, you don't realize like you've created a value and you actually have a business you could potentially sell. And it just takes experience and kind of being around to understand, like, one, that you can sell it, and then two, like how to even put a price on it. I mean, it probably could have been like a good amount of money, I would imagine. Yeah. That's all good. Yeah. Live and learn. So you went through UT. What happened after that?
Yeah, well, that was kind of an adventure because, I came in pre-med, chemi, and, I was a big nerd in high school, throughout school. I just loved to read and learn. So, I had like a full academic ride as a National Merit Scholar. I did well enough on the SAT and PSAT. But then I just kind of crashed and burned academically. The classes were not something that I was passionate about, and I didn't have the study habits because I didn't need them to be at the top of my class in high school. So yeah, 2 years of pre-med chemi, and then a year of journalism / undeclared. And then I was like, I've been in school 3 years, I need to get a degree. And the quickest way to the door was an English degree. So I got a degree in English literature with a minor in Spanish. Just kind of thinking, that's probably not going to be a career. Yeah, I could teach high school, but I'll just do grad school for something. I'll go to law school, or do something, become an academic. But so I did. Yeah, I finished. I spent 5 years at UT and came out with an English degree, and went to a Bible school out in California, a post-bachelor 2-year program. And that wasn't really, like that program isn't set up to be kind of like career oriented. It's not trying to produce people that are going to become pastors or something. It's just something my church offers, to prepare folks in any walk of life to just kind of live it to the fullest according to, their convictions. And And so, but that kind of actually did open a career, a job opportunity for me. They also are a Christian publisher. And, I didn't, when I got that English degree, I didn't think I'd ever use it, but they needed an editor. So I ended up working full time as an editor and a writer for 15 years out in California.
Wow.
Here until 2018.
I can only
And I
imagine
loved it.
that was like.
It was my dream job. Like I said, I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to reading, writing. It was funny. I thought I was taking the easy way out at UT when I switched to English. My engineering buddies were like, "How do you read all those books and write all those papers?" And I'm like, "This is fun."
Mm-hmm.
So that was a great opportunity. I'll always treasure that, and I might still be doing it, but my wife, my family's mostly there in the Austin area. My wife's is she grew up in Mexico, but they're all in Houston. She's got three sisters, all married with families, and her parents all here in the Houston area. So for a while, she was kind of hinting like, "Hey, when do you think we might move back to Texas?" So we got to a point with my previous job, I finished a big project that I had been on for most of that time. And I just kind of felt like the time was right to turn the page and kind of start again here. So it was a leap of faith though, because, while I was working there, they gave me the opportunity to go to grad school. So I did get a master's degree in history. I actually taught high school history for 10 years on a part-time basis.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a blast. And that gave me the opportunity to kind of get out from behind my desk and interact with young people, and I enjoyed it.
That's cool, man. My college degree is in history.
History, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
So you were teaching while you were working at the company when you're doing the publishing and editing?
Yeah, editing and writing full time, teaching part time, teaching 1 or 2 classes to like 9th and 10th graders. So it was great. It's not everybody's favorite subject, but if you're passionate about it, you can kind of keep their interest long enough to. I told them like, hey, if you don't take the AP test now, you're just gonna have to take it when you get to college. So if you really don't like it, pay attention now.
I think
that worked.
I think there's parts of history that everybody can enjoy. I'm sure everybody doesn't always enjoy reading about or learning about every part of history, but for me, I've been watching Mayan and documentaries about the old empires and the Egyptians and everything on YouTube at night recently.
That's cool. Yeah, my thought is if you don't like history, you just haven't been around the right person to kind of just like the way that it's a story and it's fascinating. I mean, to me, it really clicked when I had a certain teacher in college, and this guy was obsessed with it, and he was so passionate that it just kind of wore off on me as well.
Are you able to talk about the project you worked on for 15 years at the?
Sure. Yeah, it was just basically one author. He wasn't really an author; he was a speaker. He was a Christian speaker that he came from China. When the communist, when the Civil War there happened and the Communist Party took over, he was working closely with some other Chinese Christians and ministering there to Christians in China in the 1940s, 30s, 40s, 50s. Civil War happened. Talk about history. And he, at that time, they sent him out to Taiwan, which is where kind of the losing side of that Civil War went, and from Taiwan, after about 10 years in Taiwan, he continued to a Christian ministry there in Taiwan in the 50s, and then in 62, and he was a close co-worker with someone named Watchman Nee. A lot of Christians more Christians have heard of Watchman Nee because some of his books that came to America and to the West back then in the 60s and 70s caught the attention of some young Christians, in the English-speaking world at that time. But this guy's name, his English name is Witness Lee, and so he came to the States in '62, and so from '62 until he passed in the 90s, he just spoke and spoke and spoke to Christian groups around the country, and so a lot of that was published as he spoke it. You know, he spoke different kind of lines. You know, he would like study, you know, the Bible book by book, and that was published as it was coming out. But some of it, you know, was just kind of like more, you know, an afterward to another meeting, you know, or a small sermon here and there that wasn't really part of a group that would have been published at that time. And so I kind of came behind and picked up all those bits and pieces so we could publish what we call the collected works of Witness Lee. So what I did was I took, you know, a spoken sermon, and the way you speak, I feel like it was almost like translating, because the way we speak, if we just put it down on paper, you know, the grammar doesn't always work, you know, and we do repeating and things like that. So I just polished his speaking was primarily what I did, but I got to do some, and there's research involved in that too, because, you know, everything, you know, that's factual, you know, or based in scripture or some other Christian writings needs to be confirmed. But they also publish a scholarly journal called Affirmation and Critique that I got to write some book reviews and historical articles for that. So that was a lot, real enjoyable too.
That's really cool. I mean, I feel like, you know, most people probably don't get to work on projects for that long, I would imagine, in, you know, most situations. And so I think that's really interesting. And so when you moved from California back to Houston, is this when you started looking for a new job, or and specifically in real estate, or kind of how did the transition into the real estate industry happen?
Yeah, it was around that time, just before the move, when I knew the move was coming, and I'd asked my employer, hey, can I continue doing something for you guys from Houston? And that just didn't work out. So I was just wide open. I wasn't looking for real estate. I was looking for anything, you know, that I could do a good job at, you know, and support my family. Basically, that was my criteria, you know. And I kind of thought my fallback would be, and probably still is, you know, teaching, you know, because I have the English degree, the history degree, and I enjoy working with young people, you know. But, you know, I just said, let me just knock on some doors and see what opens, you know. And a good friend of mine from church, he's the, you know, I'm working for his company now, you know, just like our families, you know, our kids are the same age, our wives are good friends. So just, you know, in crossing paths with him, I just bounced it off of him. I didn't ask him for a job. I just said, hey, do you have any suggestions on, you know, my next career? Because, you know, he's got exposure to, you know, he started out in accounting, built up an accounting practice. And that's kind of what, you know, through the 1031 side of things, kind of what led him into this industry that we'll get to. But, you know, he's had exposure through his clients, you know, to all kinds of businesses and industries. So I just kind of, you know, bounced it off of him. What do you think I should do? And it turned out that right at that time, he was publishing this book that I sent you guys. And then there was going to be a lot of advertising that accompanied that. And so he was anticipating a huge influx of new leads, you know, the interest generated from the publication of the book and the accompanying advertising. So he needed to bring on a couple of new reps. And I said, well, I mean, I see why you need somebody, but I'm not the right one. I don't have the background, and I'm not like selling anything. Would be my last choice. You know, I don't like to push people, and I don't like to be pushed. You know, I don't like people to sell me things, and so I don't want to do that to the other people. But you know, I was already familiar some with the, you know, with the product, and so I realized, you know, for the right kind of client, the right kind of investor, you know, everybody says this thing sells itself, but this one really does, you know. And so it's more a matter of, I kind of see it in line with education. You know, I was a teacher for 10 years, and I feel like, you know, my job is to educate the client and let them lay it out for them, and they make the call, you know, just like I assume, you know, Realtor would do in terms of helping somebody that's looking for a house or any kind of real estate.
That's awesome. That's a really cool kind of introduction into the world of real estate. Do you mind if we talk about selling here for a second? From someone who, like you said, you weren't a salesman previously and you didn't want to sell anybody anything, and you don't personally like being sold anything either. And I think it's important for a lot of our listeners and anybody in general in business to understand that not only is sales extremely important to a business, right? That's where your revenue is generated from. However, when you're truly believing in the product and you're truly adding value to your customers, or if you're truly educating your customers like you are in your case, it's not hard selling it, right? Especially if it's a good product or service, because it sells itself. But if you truly believe in it, it's not, I wouldn't think that it's uncomfortable being in that position, trying to get somebody to, take your product or service. It's almost as if you didn't push them to move forward with your service or product. You'd be doing them a disservice because it'll help them so much.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah. And our business model, even more, we're not just knocking on cold doors. I mean, I respect that, I see the hustle you guys do, but we've got, 90 something percent of our new leads come in from folks that find our website and they register and they're like, hey, and for some of them, they don't know what it is. And I had, pretty early in the conversation, we realized, okay, this isn't the right fit for you. It's not suitable, but they want to know. They're asking us to call them. And so it's nice to not have to kind of approach somebody out of the blue as well.
Right, for sure. I think everybody gets a little uncomfortable with that, with the cold contacts. So with what y'all are doing there, do you mind elaborating a little bit on is it 1031ing and with the DSTs, right?
And hey, Peter, real quick, can you hold that book back up one more time so everyone can see it?
We'll get Andrew to put a link because it's available on.
Cool, man. And we got that same book. So yeah, just to back up, like what is a DST? Like, talk to us like we don't know anything, and kind of what value you do present and how you would pitch it to clients. We want a little education here.
So to transition from my personal story to this product, to take this job on, I had to first be licensed as a general securities registered representative. So that means taking the Series 7 exam with FINRA and then the Series 63 for the state, the same licensing at the state level. So this is the Kaplan version of the Series 7 book. I don't know what, 700 pages. So that was, and I love to learn anything new. And so that was, I had a blast, with the challenge of just kind of learning to think like a securities broker, all that stuff. But it really is a niche product. What we deal with is something that, again, high 90s% of stockbrokers have never even heard of, or or financial advisors, they might have like one of these products on the side in case one of their clients, is in a 1031 and they want to give them something. But it's really our specialty, our niche. And so DST is Delaware Statutory Trust. And like I said, my boss, he started this business 17 years ago out of his tax practice. And so this is kind of this unique overlap of tax law, real estate, and securities. So you guys are familiar with 1031, like-kind exchange. You sell something, sell a real estate investment, and not your primary residence, but something else that has, significant appreciation. If you cash out on that, you're going to be paying a big chunk of money to the government in capital gains tax. So you can defer that by doing, executing a 1031 exchange, which is, by definition, buying like-kind replacement property. and it has to be of equal or greater value, right? So you can't go down in equity or in debt. There's the double kind of requirement there. So the debt on your replacement property, if you have debt, if you haven't paid off what you're selling, you need to match the debt as well. So, and for probably most real estate investors, that they're going to go into the same kind of property. You sell one rental property, you 1031 into another. And of course, this doesn't work on the model of flipping, as Andrew learned, because there's the difference between the long term, and then the shorter holds. But to kind of cut to the chase before your eyes glaze over completely, our typical, and you guys can stop me.
I didn't know that about the debt. I didn't know the debt has to be the same. So I learned something on that.
Yeah. And that's the nice thing about these DSTs. The debt or one of the nice things, one of the advantages is the debt is built into it. Like these structures are already set up where you've got an apartment complex, multifamily property that's already got, typically something around 50% leverage. And so the investor would put in the proceeds from their sale. So let's say they sold something for $150,000. I mean, probably nothing in Austin sells that low anymore, but sell something for $150,000. And I have to say, before we go any further, that because these DSTs are regulated as private placement securities, that they're only available to accredited investors. So you got to have $1 million in net worth, excluding your primary residence, or $200,000 annual income for an individual, $300,000 for a couple. And that's primarily because these are, the government, the regulators. You heard that bird screaming in the other room?
Yeah, but it's all right.
It's kind of a zoo here. My kids and wife are all animal lovers, which I guess is why they like me. But right. So the regulators, FINRA, the SEC, they categorize these DSTs as illiquid investments, because there's not an active secondary market. So if you invest in one today, you couldn't sell it tomorrow, and we don't present it that way. But primarily because of the illiquidity and lack of investor control during the hold period, which can be up to 10 years, they consider it illiquid. And because it's illiquid, they don't want folks putting, all their, net worth into it that they may need for something else, some other, life event, or, they just need to supplement their income or something. So accredited investors only.
Can I ask a question real quick? So the DSTs that y'all are selling, basically the way that it would look, these are trusts, essentially they're funds, I guess, right? That these investors are 1031 into. So like if Matt and I went and sold, an apartment complex that we have and we want a 1031, we contact you, and, assuming everything works out, straight out of closing, we can invest in this DST, which would be, a fund that contains real estate that would match the same criteria that we need to meet for our 1031.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's not a fund, but it behaves similar to a fund in many ways. It's syndicated real estate, which you guys know, fractional ownership. But because it's you're buying a beneficial interest in this trust. It's passive. It has to be passive. There's kind of a set of rationale why the IRS will consider one of these DSTs as qualified for 1031, and why they won't do that for REITs. Some people hear it and they say, oh, it's like a REIT. Well, a REIT doesn't qualify for 1031 exchange, but a REIT's a trust, and this is a trust. So there is some similarity there. Similar, same kind of analogy with a fund. It's syndicated real estate, but it's technically it's a trust, and it's securitized. And there's, a benefit, there's that kind of adds some hurdles and some barriers, like accreditation. But the benefit of being a security is full disclosure. There's regulation and compliance, and it's just, every offering has to have all these things built into it, third party legal opinion, tax opinion, environmental studies. All this is done, packaged as part of the deal and fully disclosed in this like 300-page private placement memorandum that you have to receive in order to be technically, offered and, to purchase a beneficial interest in one of these. So there's full disclosure, and not just on the property itself, but on the the sponsor, the company that puts these together and sells them is called the sponsor. And these sponsor companies are big real estate companies, and some of them, do a lot more than DSTs. Cantor Fitzgerald out of New York, and there's others, and some just focus on DSTs. But there's full disclosure and due diligence on them, on their track records, on their principles. So some folks, it's like, who am I? The issue of control, that can go either way. A lot of people, like in your stage, and probably most of the viewers of this webcast, they're starting out and they want control, and that's great. That's the way to do it at that stage. But a lot of our investors are like retirement age. They've been managing, a portfolio of 30, 50 rental properties for decades, maybe 40 years, and they're ready to step back and not have to deal with tenants and trash and maintenance anymore. So they want something passive. They want to 1031 qualify, and they want it to continue to cash flow and, of course, potentially appreciate. And so that's kind of what the DST offers in a nutshell to accredited investors.
What does the market look like as far as available options? I mean, these are funds, right? So I'm trying to understand. At any given time, there's a certain amount of open funds, and then they close, and then now you're set, and then there's new ones coming. I mean, are there hundreds of these things, or what does it look like?
It's more like dozens.
Dozens.
And they're different. There's different asset class. Yeah, I would say nationally there's 30, maybe about 30 open at any given time, and it fluctuates. The market tightened up at the beginning of the pandemic. There wasn't a lot of new product coming on because lending froze for a little bit. But most times, including now, there's 20 to 30 available offerings, and they're different sizes and in different asset classes. So I would say about half of them are in multifamily, and there'll be like one apartment complex. Some are 2 or 3 apartment complexes, and other examples are medical office buildings, industrial buildings, distribution warehouses for large, internet retailers. There's retail portfolios where you can get 15 Walgreens, Dollar Generals, those type of things. So it's all different shapes and sizes, and depending on the depending size of it, the equity raise is going to be limited. It's not open-ended where they can keep adding on properties, like a REIT would do, but it's you're investing in that particular property or set of properties. Let's say it's an apartment complex that's, worth 40 million. 20 million of it is finance, 20 million of it, probably more like 21 or 22 million of it will be the equity raise. That'll come in from investors. And so that can happen. That equity raise can get taken up if it's an attractive offering, or if inventory is otherwise low. That can go in a week or two on the short end, or 6 months on the long end. But usually it's somewhere 2 to 3 months of availability of any particular DST until it's filled up.
So does it have to be done by a large company, or could Alex and I start a apartment syndication and get it to meet the requirements for a DST, or do you know what that looks like?
I'm not super familiar. I haven't been involved in putting one together. I kind of see them after the fact, after they're produced. I do see new companies coming online. We're the broker, so we just look at what's available and due diligence it. We have a team, our back office, our broker dealer, which is Well Forged Securities, that due diligence these things and then decide, can we approve it? Is it likely to be suitable for at least one of our clients? But that being said, besides the big long-term, history companies I see doing this, there's new ones coming online with some regularity. But there is going to be some considerable work in kind of establishing the distribution of it, with different because like I said, it's a security. So you don't have to be a a company in the securities business. You can just be a real estate business, but to distribute it, you have to go through the securities channels. It has to be distributed by broker dealers.
Got it. Yeah, the value that I see with it is once you do the 1031, you've got that quick time frame, and you might be forced to overpay for real estate because everyone wants to sell to a 1031 buyer. And if you couldn't find, it just depends. I mean, some people want to keep it in real estate or, buy the DST, which is still real estate, obviously, and probably a little bit less hands-on. But for me, it's a great backup plan because you don't have to, it seems like wouldn't be overpaying. Obviously, you got to get in with the right people and make sure they got a good deal. But basically, can you, if you're doing a 1031, because you have to go identify properties, could you identify 2 properties and then 1 DST, and then you vet out that timeline and then get a deal done depending on which one is the best?
Yeah, for sure. The downside to that would be, if it's a real attractive offering, as a DST, it might only be available for a week or two. So you can identify it, but you might want to identify something that's going to be on the shelf a little longer if you're going to take that long to decide on what you're going to pull the trigger on. But yeah, as a backup option under the 3 property rule, we get that a lot. Sometimes we'll get somebody that calls us and say, hey, I'm on day 44, day 45 to identify. I need something. And we can get it. We can't close in one day. We can close in a couple of days, but we can give them the assurance that this is, we'll be able to close on this for you. And then, I was just going to say, from a realtor's perspective, we hear from realtors all the time. And then they find out it's securities and we can't cut them in on any of the commission or anything unless they're licensed under the security, under FINRA. So then we never hear from them again. But what I wanted to point out to you guys, three words: inventory, inventory, inventory. There's my sales pitch. Because I was watching your webcast with the guy from Florida, Grant, and you're talking to him about a multifamily property. I think you said it was near Barton Creek.
Yeah.
Barton Creek Mall. And so, he pointed out, the seller, the owner, her problem is going to be the basis. She's depreciated it down to nothing. The whole thing is going to be capital gains. So as an older person, she probably doesn't want to take on a new apartment complex. But you can present this to her. I know a guy that brokers these DSTs, and you can and the minimums on these are 100,000, but that's negotiable. If somebody sells a single family for under 100 and they need a 1031, and if they're an accredited investor, we can get them in. But it gives you the opportunity, if you're coming in with a few 100,000 or more, several million, which we get sometimes, opportunity to diversify, into a few different properties. You can diversify by asset class. You can do some multifamily, some retail, some industrial. You can diversify by leverage. We do have some debt-free offerings. It's rare because most investors most 1031 folks need to have that debt requirement, and you can always go up in leverage. You just can't go down. But some people are debt-free and just like, I don't want to invest in anything with leverage because that's just one more element of risk, right? Like if the property underperforms, then and they can't, to the extent that they can't make the debt payment, then that's a big risk, that the bank could take it and you lose your principal.
Can you explain the debt portion real quick? Saying you can go up, but you can't go down. The debt aspect for the 1031.
Yeah, well, I probably should have said I'm not an accountant, so I'm not legally qualified to give tax advice. But but the basics of the 1031, or like I said at the beginning, you need to match the equity proceeds that you're getting from the sale. But overall, the big picture, you have to match the value of what you're selling. So if you sell something for a million and 500,000 of it comes to you because that's what you put into it, and 500,000 of it goes back to the bank, it's the value of the property was still a million. Your replacement property has to be a million. So that could be, if you could add your own 500,000 to it. And you have your initial 500,000 in proceeds from the sale. If you have 500,000 more besides that, you need a place for, then you can go into a debt free on the next one. But one way or another, you need to obtain a property of equal or greater value on the other side of that exchange. And so typically that will be by putting in exactly what you have in proceeds and then matching or exceeding the debt level. And that's already built into these DSTs.
So just to clarify, say we've got $1 million property. We have 500K in equity. We owe 500 to the bank. We sell that property. Bank gets 5, we get 5, and then we go and buy another $1 million property. We cannot put 400K down for that next $1 million property. We have to put that 500.
If you want to fully your capital gains to execute a 1031, you need to put all 500 down. That you can do a partial 1031, but the IRS isn't generous. Like they don't say, okay, that 100,000, we're going to say that was part of your basis. They're going to say that 100,000 that you took out in proceeds, they're going to say that was, if you have 100,000 in gains, they're going to say that's the 100,000 that you took out was all gains. And while we're on 1031s, in case, we go too far away from them, I just want to point out what you guys probably know, and that is that those funds can't hit your bank account. They have to be held by a qualified intermediary, QI, or an accommodator. And that's some disinterested third party that'll, they're the experts on 1031s. And so they can also educate you. But you want to have that lined up ahead of your sale if you're thinking about a 1031, because once those proceeds hit your bank account, then the government IRS is going to want a piece of it.
Let me ask one more question about this debt portion, just to make sure I fully understand. So say we sell the $1 million property, same scenario, 500. We want to go buy a $1.5 million property. We put, the 500 down on that one, but then our debt to equity ratio, our LTV would increase at that point. And so that would not be allowable.
No, it's perfectly allowable. You can go up, you just can't go down.
Got it. Okay.
So I guess we couldn't buy something that we had, 400,000 in debt because we just had 500,000 in debt.
Got it.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good option that a lot of people. What's that?
The way to go down in debt is to add equity from outside of the sale,
Right.
But that's not.
We don't want to do that. We want to use that to buy more properties.
Exactly.
Or more DSTs.
Exactly.
Yeah, man, not a lot of people talk about it. And it's good to get on here and share what it is. I think it is a big value. And you need someone like you to help broker the deal in order to get into a DST. What are ways that you guys, try to get in front of clients or ways that we can help you moving forward with this? Yeah, well,
one more thing, and this kind of relates to that, but also something we were talking about earlier, and that is, the way to use one of these for, a lot of people like you or that you do business with, besides a backup plan, it's also a great way, like if your replacement property, like Alex has been talking about, like let's say you found the perfect replacement property that you want and you got a great deal on it. You sold something for $1 million. The replacement property is only 900,000. Let's say you're going down. Then you got 100,000.
Yep, I know what you're saying. You can use the 100 for the DST. Got it.
Yeah,
that's great because you could be getting a really good deal on something and not be forced to overpay and throw the extra in the DST. That's awesome.
we have a lot of clients that do this, that, they sell something for 10 million, like a pharmacy or whatever, a little shopping center, and they find something they like for 5 million, but then they've got 5 million more, and they'll just put it into a few different DSTs. And a lot of times they'll come back and want more VSTs on the next one, because it's a pretty easy experience just to get that check in the mail each month.
Is there a reason somebody would buy a DST and not be doing a 1031 just to own the DST?
Yeah, that does happen. Most of our clients are in 1031s, but it's real estate, it's securitized, it's passive. And so especially some folks that are typically, they'll come in through a 1031 on their first purchase, but they just kind of like the experience enough, and they get to know the sponsor companies and us, the brokers, that they're just comfortable enough to just, if they have some extra equity to invest from anything else, that they'll put some more in. You don't have to be in a 1031. And we actually have other offerings besides DSTs that are actually funds, but still, have the securities kind of oversight on them, that are not 1031 investments. And we broker some REITs too, some private REITs. Opportunity zone. I don't know if you're familiar with the opportunity zone legislation. Opportunity zone funds. Yeah,
we know about Opportunity Zone and Opportunity City, Austin, Texas.
There you go. double opportunity there. So we broker some Opportunity Zone funds as well.
That's interesting, man. I think we got two goals here, Alex. One is we got to invest in a DST one day, and the other one, we got to sell a property to a DST.
Start a DST.
That's the third goal. We
know a good broker.
Yeah, there we go.
I can help you bring in the investors' equity. But yeah, at your stage, folks like, in their 20s and 30s that are just getting into real estate, you can, with the hustle that I see you guys putting in and preaching, you can probably, earn a higher return, by putting in that sweat equity. But for the right kind of, and not all our investors are retired. Some are young, and they just kind of came into some property either through their investments or, they inherited it. And it's like, of course, when you inherit it, it's a stepped up basis. So if you sell it soon enough, you don't have to deal with the 1031 requirement. Mm-hmm. And that's another advantage of the DST. It's the same kind of stepped up basis when it passes to the heirs. But yeah, for those folks, either retirees that want, more time for their grandkids or golfing or fishing, or a young professional that's kind of just realized that, that hustle game that real estate takes isn't their cup of tea. And this is a good option to exit left and, without the tax consequences, and continued cash flow, continued appreciation. And that creates inventory for you guys. It's so tight there. I'm looking for a house here in the Houston area, and my kids like their school, so I don't have a real broad geographic net. And it's like 3 houses, that are in the district, that meet our criteria, that are in the district. But I know, in Austin, nationally, I think right now inventory is low.
It is.
So it doesn't hurt to just take the sale part of it, as a realtor, to take the sale part of the transaction and use that to serve the interest of your client if they're looking for something more passive like a DST. And then that creates inventory for your buyers.
Yeah, it's a tool. It's another tool. I see the value in it, especially in the idea that you said that you can use only a portion, because then you're just not forced to go spend it all on certain deals.
Yeah, and you can do more than 3 properties with the identification. Of course, if you close before 45 days, which we encourage, folks that are already committed to DSTs, it's like, let's not wait 45 days. Let's buy it, and we can close in a week on a DST, and then you don't have, the identification is done. But But for folks that are getting close to the 45 days, there's, also two other rules, the 95% rule, percent rule. So if you're dealing with a larger number of properties, the 1031 can accommodate that as well in terms of, diversifying out from what you're selling one property and going into several.
Mm-hmm. Well, Peter, maybe one day you'll help us start the TRE DST. That's what I'm thinking about.
Awesome.
Is there anything that you anything else that you want to touch on, or anything you want to talk about that or needs that you may have for us or for our listeners that we can help out with?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I could dive into the weeds as deep as anybody would like, but I think this is good for an introduction for somebody that's hearing about it for the first time. And anybody that wants more information can reach me. I'll give Andrew the link to our company's website. And again, our book is great. Other brokers use this to educate their new reps that are coming in to the DST industry. So the book's a great resource. Our website has a lot of educational material on it, and then we'll give you a call or shoot you an email anytime anybody wants more information.
Right on, man. And you still out there running, getting ready for any more marathons coming up?
Oh man, I'm trying. I got a half marathon in 2 weeks here, week and a half, but I don't know if I'm ready for it.
So who can run further, you or Andrew?
Is he there?
We can't say. Just give an honest answer.
Okay.
And who's faster?
I always think it's me. I'll take anybody, but my son is about to turn 15 this month, and I'm nervous that my son's about to pass me. I'm sure Andrew probably could too.
So you're saying you're not even worried about your son beating Andrew.
Well, Andrew's problem is he's just got too many muscles. Muscles slow you down when you're running. So, I wish I had muscles, but since I don't have muscles, I use what used to be my lightness to go faster.
That's awesome, man.
Now I've got instead of a 6-pack, I have a keg now. So that's my fuel though. That's for the really long runs.
Yeah, we can't all be like Andrew.
Well, I really appreciate it, guys. I had a blast.
Yeah, man. Thank you for your time. How can I guess we'll just put your notes or your info in the show notes so they can get a hold of you. But you're here to help people with DSTs if they're doing 1031s, and we'd love to stay in touch and appreciate you coming on the Real Estate Podcast. And one day, TRE DST, baby.
Thank you, Peter.
Prophesy.
All right, let's go, man. Thank you.